Oh, hello.
Here he is. Well, you're not sideways.
You're not sideways. What's going on with that? Hang on.
Hang on.
This happened the other day too.
Yeah, whatever.
There you
Yeah.
go.
There we go.
Yeah. Whew, I can take that down. You don't need my hobnobs. You don't need my hobnobs in this stuff, do you?
You're not going to sit down and talk to me? Or are you doing the lean on the table?
I can log in with my laptop, or I can stand up.
You stand up like that. I can't hear you as well.
No?
If when you're closer, I can hear you a lot better.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I mean, I can happy to sit in front of my laptop. Does that suit you better?
That sounds so much better when you're closer.
Right, maybe I should sit in front of my laptop then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll hang up and go back in. I'll be 2 minutes.
Okay, no worries. Here he is.
Oh, hey, I've been promoted to panelist, I see.
You have.
I'm not quite sure what that is, but...
You are so funny, Nathan. Like, you wear a fucking Hawaiian shirt. I just love you.
I figured I'd get dressed up for you, Jess.
Oh, you're so funny.
How you doing?
Really, really good. I was thinking about you. I was like, I asked a couple other people to be on the show, and they didn't get back to me. And I'm like, I'm going to ask Nathan. We have these epic conversation. He triggers the fuck out of me in some ways. Not really, not when we're talking about the parental stuff, but I was like, we've got to demonstrate that being triggered is okay. It doesn't mean don't talk to people.
Yeah.
It actually means get more curious to me about why and what these problems are that have us get triggered. And so I wanted to, so my intention, I always like to create intention. I'd love if you want to create one too. Firstly, I just have to communicate. I literally just dropped off my kids. My kids just did changeover. Ellie came, Regan was there. I had my next door neighbor with me because I just won't be alone.
Yep.
That's all.
How you doing?
Yeah, good. I mean, court's tomorrow. So I'm good. I just think I needed to breathe
Yeah, I get it.
and acknowledge that. Anything you want to acknowledge?
Good. I mean, the only thing that's worried me about this, it wasn't worrying me, but just being mindful in this conversation is that it's pretty confronting. I mean, it might not be confronting for you or I.
No, it's actually really good. I think we want to start out acknowledging that. You know, we're not about to tell, because one of the things I noticed today when I thought about it is like, how are people going to listen to this? Is we're not going in saying that people don't have real experiences and that people don't have real challenges. Their experience is real. But what we're going to share is from our own experience what we've discovered about problems for ourselves.
I've got some good examples.
Yeah, and what you saw, just like doing your research in creating AI technology.
Yeah.
As a like, and I call this out as well, is this is not the truth. We are not experts. We're just sharing our experience, which we found had a profound impact in the conversations like I've had with you, how I've thought about things since having that conversation with you. And I just wanted to share that conversation with people.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd be interested in what people think, what people have got to say, what comes up as questions. Anything is fine with me. One of the things you'll notice about my shows is I'm actually really okay with anyone's response about anything. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's I like if one person says that there's other people who have said it, they're just not saying it.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of people that commented and went, oh, thank God someone's saying it. Like,
yeah.
Then what are these things? Like, it's actually an exploration. That's why it's called the explore. It's not called the fact. It's like we're exploring something like two kids from our own view of the world. And I call all of that out.
Yeah.
So anything is welcome. Another thing is that, how long we got? Okay, we got 5 minutes. Another thing is that I may interrupt you.
Yep.
That's purely to keep the conversation flowing. I'm watching the engagement. I want you to be fully yourself. You don't have to curb anything. You talk. If you're okay, I'll question you and challenge you on things.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. It's not because I have any intention of like trying to be right in an argument. I just want to kind of deepen it.
Oh, sure. You go for it.
Okay, cool. And you can call out anything. If you think I'm being a bitch, go for it. Just go like, are you being a bitch?
Nah.
I'll be like, maybe. But what I'm saying is you don't have to like worry about what you say. It's fine. Anyway, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm like.
I'll be responsible. I mean, I get how important it is to be a little bit responsible around this sort of stuff. People think it's a bit freaky. So I'm just going to turn that other light on and give it a bit more light in here.
Yeah. Are you okay if I say that you've been in a relationship where someone, you know, moved your stuff and kind of like the salt and pepper shakers as an example?
Probably. I don't want her to experience that she's made wrong ever.
Okay. I don't have to call out. I don't have to mention it.
Not because I think it's right or wrong. Mostly just because it's such a weird thing for someone to do that when you call it out, it's really fucking weird. Like I'm in a bit of a situation like I know that like different authorities are monitoring stuff. You know, like I get questioned. I have an hour long, in my experience, interrogation every week. Because they're trying to work me out.
Who?
Child safety.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
I've just got to be mindful or responsible for what that looks like. You know,
fair enough.
I don't want them to ever experience that I make their mother wrong.
No, I understand. It's perfectly fine. I don't have to bring it up. I get it. I'm the same. I never talk about Ellie. You know, except to say this is kind of like what separated parents go through, the emotional. I never make her wrong.
Yeah.
I hardly even talk about her. If I do, I talk about her in the sense of her experience of me.
Yeah.
From what I can see. And it's, I get it. I get it.
I think that also could be a discussion too for what agreement reality looks like.
Actually, we could use that as an example. Like, you and I have exes, and it hasn't always been great, but what's important to us is that we never shame, guilt, despite what they do. Like, that we don't, like, the problem lied for us in that.
Yeah. I don't even know. I mean, I don't even go there with Julie anymore. Because one of the challenges is that if I push the buttons, if I make her wrong, then instantly there's something else in the space that's not her behavior.
And maybe this is probably, anyway, let's set the intention, because we've only got a couple of minutes.
Yep.
And we can go from there. So the intention is to explore problems.
Yep.
And to leave people with a sense, for me, leave people a sense with their own power to impact anything.
Yeah.
That's really what is there anything you want to add?
I think for me, it's not just the power. What there's for me is to actually see things, some of their things as opinions, and the power to be able to actually let some things go, to create space for themselves.
Yeah.
I think that being intentionally creating problems like with a purpose is significantly more empowering.
Oh, love that. I'm going live now.
Okay, what do I need to do if I go to the toilet?
You can go to the toilet and I'll talk until you get back. Just get yourself on mute.
Right.
Okay, no
Number
problem.
one.
Do you need to go now?
Should I go quickly beforehand?
Yes.
Okay, I will.
Go.
Right, number one done.
Yeah, that was quick. Nathan Aherne. And I'm going to share it over. All right. We're live now.
Awesome.
Well, hello. Hello, everyone. Jess Claire here. I am with the awesome Nathan Aherne. I am going to just get this up on my Facebook. As you guys are tuning in, if you are tuning in, please say hello. Please leave me a message. Know you're here. We would love to hear from you and know that you are watching. I'm just going to do my duty and share this over. Before I do that, hey Jen, hey Gary, hey Christine. If you are anyone else jumping on. Hello everyone, Jess. I'm gonna share this over. I try to do this as quickly as possible, everyone. Who else do we have online? Katie, if you are jumping on, make sure to say hello so I can acknowledge you when you jump on. Here we go. And done. All right. So Nathan, why don't you start? I usually like do some big introduction, but before I do, why don't you start with introducing yourself, what you currently do, and what why you're here and how you ended up on the Raw Explore, because I know it was sort of a last minute thing.
What do I do?
Yeah. What do you do? I still don't really know.
I know. I'm not exactly sure what I do either. Yeah, I mean, I do IT, but I would probably say if you wanted to, I've been working on this for a long time. I'm like a nerd for hire. So
Nerd for hire?
Nerd for hire.
Oh, nerd for hire.
Nerd.
Yes.
I don't know. Like I do IT for like really big corporations. I design and manage their information strategy. So essentially, like publicly listed businesses or really big private corporations, I do their IT. I do 0 to 3 million with Brooke Anderson.
You do.
I run companies. I've run like 20 companies, or I do all sorts of different things.
You run 20. This is the thing, right?
20. I don't run 20 at once. I've run 20. I've built 20.
You built 20 companies. How many companies do you have now?
Oh, not many. I sold them all years ago. I decided that I was going to get out of the game. I'd had enough. I proved that I could do it.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, which is probably why I don't know what you do, because you just seem to hang out with Brooke all day. That seems to be what you do. And, we did Authentic Professionals together. We used to run that networking event together.
Yes.
Yes. And we've coached on programs together.
Yes, we sure have.
I know we have, and we've gotten up to some fun together. For those who are watching, hey Trish, hey Karina, hey Naomi, Jerry, again, this is really about your engagement. We're about to hit a pretty interesting topic. I know it's not a topic that many people talk about, but it's something that Nathan and I have spent a lot of phone calls talking about. Just to clarify, the stuff that Nathan and I have gotten up together is just fun. I just realized that sounded a bit weird. We've gotten up just yes, we've been to some fun parties together, just hung out, had some fun. I love Nathan, and he triggers me like you wouldn't believe. And which is why I have him on the show.
Oh, great.
Trish says, can I hassle Nathan, please? Trish, of course you can. Hello, Mum. Michelle. And hey, Sonia, absolutely. We would love, like, more than anything, we want to hear your comments, thoughts on this. This is not an easy topic to talk about. Even when Nathan and I were introducing this topic, we were going, we're not going to sit here and say problems don't exist. We're not going to say that what you experience in your day-to-day life isn't real. Like, we know that. Hey, Sonia said Trigger City. I think she's talking about you. Well, so we're not saying that these problems don't exist. We're not saying that what you're grappling with in your life isn't real. We know that you have these real experiences. We have real experience. Jen says, to be honest, I think he annoyed me when I met him. Okay, geez, you're getting hassled, Nathan.
I'm good with it.
I know he is. And essentially what there is to discuss here is, I had this incredible conversation with Nathan once. Nathan and I have coached together on some amazing courses, and we had this conversation once about problems, and Nathan has done a lot of research in AI because of some of the stuff he does. And I wanted to talk about that. So this is really a discussion. The Raw Explore is about allowing ourselves to just go, we're not gurus. We're not saying we have the answers. We're not saying that everything we're saying is the truth. But what if we just put that aside and we allow ourselves to really explore something here? And when you talk to me about problems that maybe they don't actually really exist, this is not to say we don't experience stuff, but I wanted to have a conversation about that. So let's do that. I think I cut you off. So do you want to finish introducing yourself?
I think I'm good. I think that was it. I got the triggers bit at the end was enough. So,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, And yeah, I think the reason I get triggered by you is because you see the world so differently. And another intention I had here was to, just because someone triggers you doesn't mean that that's an indicator to avoid. For me, um, when I get triggered heavily by someone, there's you and another guy that triggers me like you wouldn't believe. It's like, what is that? Like, why am I getting so triggered by this? And so I kind of want to push and lean in and understand you more and understand myself more and go, what are you hitting? And that sort of opened up the idea of problems, right? It's like, is this really a problem that you trigger me? Or is there just something there for me to discover?
Yeah.
So I want to open up with that. Like, what is it about this topic that you want to talk about?
Oh, well, I as a being a nerd for hire, one of the things that sort of useful in that area is to like know lots of stuff. So to be across lots of different, bleeding edge technologies and things like that. And having done so many courses with you, those sorts of things, and read a lot of books, I remember looking into, well, what's the next step in artificial intelligence? And I love artificial intelligence because it allows me to see like what it would look like. It's like an analogy. It's like thinking about how we behave as an analogy. It's not personal. And I thought, well, surely, the world's full of problems. We have these opinions that there's just problems everywhere. I had the opinion that there are problems everywhere. So I was like, well, I'm a smart dude. I can prove that problems exist. I'll work out what the math looks like. And then I'll be able to assist in solving that challenge for artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I see myself as a problem solver too.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
the idea of not having any problems exist was like, if I don't have a problem to solve, what am I going to do?
Oh, yeah. I get hired for them. I'm a great problem solver.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought it'd be so awesome to solve, like to work out what the mathematics around problems look like.
Right.
To break down human behavior into mathematical things, which is really confronting in itself.
Right. And so that's what you did?
Yeah, I decided that I was going to go and spend, I think it was 8 months I spent trying to work out what a problem was mathematically. And I failed dismally.
And so this is, so just so everyone listening can understand where this came from. Jennifer just says, I guess it's a great thought, Jess, and you just triggered me. Good, triggering. Okay. And look, this is also intended to leave you with a sense of power to influence everything, because that's essentially what happened after the call that I had with Nathan. So when we talked about, I called him one day really upset, and he's like, problems don't exist. And I'm like, what? What do you mean problems don't exist? I was like, you can't even say that. It was so triggering for you to say that in what I was dealing with. I had so many things going on. So why don't you tell me what you discovered for yourself after searching for problems mathematically, because you were doing some research for some artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
What did you discover about problems mathematically?
Well, they're really interesting. So that we see them so often means we must be experts at problems. And I'm a problem solver. Everyone's a problem solver. And so
I could tell you the problem with you.
yeah, you could.
Could.
Probably thousands. That's a whole nother live, Jess. That's a whole nother live. And I'm sure there's plenty of people that jump on there and just throw in those comments.
I know.
Thousands.
I have a problem with that shirt too. Just so you know. Anyway.
So the thing with artificial intelligence is that you don't have that ability to, like, artificial intelligence is sort of teaching your phone how to recognize something, and it's not innately smart. And so when you're doing artificial intelligence, it's about, well, how would I mathematically simulate what a problem would look like? How would you put like a telephone and have it get that, like if it wants to walk from here to there, that it gets that it needs to walk off the curb, and that's a problem it needs to solve.
Right.
And you can break it down into all sorts of different things. Like there's problems, for instance, how do I get out the door? How do I open the door? How does it actually perceive the world? And how do we do that mathematically? So how does it even decide that stepping off the curb is a problem or not? So you don't actually get the ability to bring in like your opinions or preconceived ideas. You've got to like actually come all the way back to what does a problem mathematically look like? how would I even point at something and say to an artificial intelligence, hey, that is a problem? Or
Yeah.
where do I even start?
Okay. And you did that, right?
Yes.
So you went and looked at that.
Yes.
And just to give people the sense of what the conversation looked like, you're like, Jess, I just so you know, there's no problems, there's only solutions.
Yes.
And and I went, huh? How can you actually have a solution without a problem?
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you see?
It's all there is. You walk around, and I looked at thousands of different images, how to combine them, how to, all this information, and I couldn't see that there was a problem, but I could see millions of solutions. Like, for instance, I could teach an artificial intelligence as a bunch of people on a bus, but I couldn't tell the artificial intelligence what the problem was, or why they were on the bus. There's 50 people, they've all got a different problem. The solution is the bus. Got no idea what the problem is.
Okay, got it. So the thing is that we inherently look for meaning. So now I feel like we're talking about meaning, right? Yeah. The why factor.
Well, that's the problem with a problem. There's a meaning to it.
Right. So the why factor is, so if you use the bus example, right? And hello, Anastasia, Marta, and Padma, and Shelley. If we use the bus example, there's 10 people on a bus.
Yeah.
What you're saying is it's actually irrelevant to an AI or an artificial intelligence about why they're on the bus. But as human beings, we constantly look at why people are on the bus. Whereas effectively, what we do in maths is we go, they got on the bus. Now, how do we get them off? Or I don't know. I'm trying to like grapple. I'm grappling with this myself. But you tell me.
Oh yeah. Look, and I grappled with it. It took me 8 hours to create the video. It's quite a complicated thing to get at, because I mean, we do live like problem and solution. But the simple fact of the matter is that I could not point to any one thing and say that was a problem. There was no way for me to say, I can't point to a cat, I can point to a dog, I can point to certain things, I can point to this as a whiteboard marker, but I can't, there's nothing to point to and say that's an actual problem. I can't teach an artificial intelligence that there's a problem. Therefore, like, they don't exist. There's heaps of solutions out there. Like, get the 10 people on the bus have all got 10 problems they're trying to solve with the bus, but they're all, they made those problems up. They're not actually things that you can go and point to and say that's a problem. The bus is a solution, but there's 10 different problems being solved by that single solution.
Yeah. Okay. So this is where you lost me, right? I remember I was on the phone to Nathan. He said something like this, and I went, okay, we're going to need an hour. And I did. We went into it, right? And I was like, I think the thing that I got, and I'm just going to kind of point it out straight away. Hello, Danelle. The thing that I got, and I'm going to point it out straight away, is that problems really only exist to me individually.
Yeah.
And, you know, even as we got on this call, both of you and I have a lot of stuff that we've dealt with in life, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we both agree that we don't like doing is we never want to say, be, or talk about anyone individually in such a way that that individual could possibly be left as if that we have shamed them, named them, diminished them as a human being, like no one. And we agreed, like we both called that out and said we don't ever want to do that, right? So we're all about inclusive conversations. And yet when I think about you know, and some of the things that have happened to us, I'm not going to go into it, but some of the things that have happened to us, we could share that with you and you would see this as a problem. People listening would go, there's a real problem with that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't kind of know where I'm going with this, but I'm just going to like dive in because that's what I do. What I'm trying to say here is one of the things I think you and I have in common is that we don't ever make anyone else's behavior a problem for us.
No.
We just deal with the solution.
You could say that, yeah.
You could say that? I don't know. What do you think?
Say that. Yeah, I've got no interest. I've got no interest in making someone else wrong. because
But you
their
do.
wrongness has been imagined by me. Who am I to tell someone how they should or shouldn't live their life?
Yeah. Have you ever made someone wrong?
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you made me wrong before. I freaking made you wrong, man. Tell me. Oh, that's
Yeah.
like, honest. This guy's doing my head in. But you and I also have the kind of relationship where we can call that out.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Again, it doesn't, there's no problem here with
No.
us making each other wrong. So why do you think it's important for you to call out before we got on here? And you and I both do it. Why do you, oh, hello, Lisa. Hello, Lisa. Hello, sorry. Hello. I love this. We got all these cool people on. Hey, Haley. Oh, Haley's on as well. Trisha's sitting on the edge of her seat. Okay. So why did you think it was so important for you and I to call that out on a conversation about do problems exist?
Well, why call it? Well, that I have an opinion about someone or something is me essentially creating a problem. And it's
right.
complete. It's an opinion. It's a figment of what's there for me. But I just don't think it adds any value, because to them it's not an issue. That I'm triggered, and there's no discovery in that. There's no, for me, in saying that there's a problem, there's just not a lot of discovery to what that, what actually might be there. Like, you're triggered, that could be a problem to you. But then there's the option of discovery of, well, what is it? What does it really look like? What is it really? It's quite limiting.
Yeah. And this is the part where I teeter on, I want to make sure I'm calling everything out here to everyone that's listening, right? Because, Sonia's just said, what about when it impacts you? Oh, look, this is what I want to make sure of. I am not saying that there is stuff in your life that is not impacting you, that you don't feel, experience like all sorts of body sensations, that you don't have, thoughts that pop into your head. Sometimes I've had things happen to me even recently where I've been like, I'm so angry, I just want to get on my phone and do one of those emojis that goes right. I love that emoji. Oh my god, I'm so angry. But I don't, right? So I don't, like, I have those thoughts, I have that feeling, but I don't. I just sort of like, to me, it's like, it's that's something to look at. Like Sonia just said, it's a good point, discovery. I'm like, okay, something's happening. Some sort of, what could you call it? Some energy has sort of come into my body. I'm having body sensations in my chest. I'm having these thoughts, like I'm just really frustrated. Like, that happened. That's all happening. But what's the problem with that? Is there really actually a problem with all that? I can hear crickets. I love it when I can hear crickets. That's a question for you. Is there a problem with that?
For me?
Yeah, well, just in general, from what you could see in...
It's an opinion. You can have an opinion that's a problem. But
right.
Opinion is not something that I can, it's like, that's the challenge that I came up against, an opinion is something that's made up. Like, an artificial intelligence with an imagination is completely different to an artificial intelligence that can solve problems. They're two separate things, they're not the same thing.
So artificial intelligence with an imagination is different from artificial intelligence that can solve problems. I think that's a really good point. Say a bit more about that.
Well, one of the, you look in the news and everyone's a bit worried about AI, and I think that it's because it probably wouldn't be a very good idea for us to develop an omnipotent being, i.e. a being that just can't be destroyed, that's completely self-aware and believes that it's under threat. Because then it's dangerous to humanity. Which I think is one of the biggest challenges that we're currently trying to work out, is how do you create something that's intelligent that doesn't have the experience of imagination can be dangerous, because inside an imagination, anything's possible. Our thoughts go from really, really lovely sometimes to maybe not so lovely, and everything in between. So we probably don't want an artificial intelligence that we can't kill, that's completely electronic, that can think all these things up, because that could become very dangerous if it decides that it's under threat. So how do we have it? How do we have an intelligence solve problems? I.e., how do we have it choose to step down the gutter without having an imagination where anything's possible? There's some really interesting examples. I think that Microsoft came out with artificial intelligence, and it said it let it go out on Twitter. It was this girl, I don't know, it's like a teenage girl, and it turned into a neo-Nazi because it learnt from Twitter posts and information on the internet. They just let it go, and they had to pull the plug on it. That it didn't have an imagination. It just learned from whatever it encountered. It's a little bit dangerous for us to have an artificial intelligence that's also that way inclined.
What was that? What do you mean by that way inclined?
Well, it turned into a neo-Nazi is probably not a good idea for us to have. Like, what value does a prejudice have inside of an artificial intelligence? We sort of want it to be useful to humanity, not so much running around making a bunch of decisions that aren't particularly helpful for society.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that when you looked at it, you can program AI to say, if bus then blow up, right? You can...
You could do that. This one just particularly learnt from posts on the internet, and it learnt more and more information it consumed. It actually just turned that way. It learnt to be that way by interacting with certain human
beings
about problems.
Right. So it looked at how someone solved problems on the internet, and then it drew the solutions from how someone else solved the problems.
Yeah, it probably just ran into a whole bunch of posts about neo-Nazis because it wasn't particularly well controlled, and learned to become a neo-Nazi, because that's like, they're really good at spotting things. Like, it's great at spotting people or melanomas. There's a really good one. Google's got a great artificial intelligence that can spot cancer cells. It's fantastic, but it's completely hopeless at discovering or finding coffee cups. It's just really good at one thing. So it learns by example, I guess. Learn by example.
Mm.
Yeah. So I thought that neo-Nazi's version of problems was the great way to do it, because it just learned that.
So what it's learning, by the sounds of it, and look, Sonia's like, are we talking about human beings or AI here? Well, we're kind of drawing a bit of a, we're exploring. So firstly, we're exploring right now. We're exploring the topic like kids would get a little block out and kind of look around and go, what's going on in here? So we're not saying we have the answers. I'm just curious of Nathan's experience. I've got my own experience with this. You know, Karina says an opinion is highly subjective and unrelated to external sources. Anastasia, some people cause horrendous harm. It's fine. It's a fine line, isn't it? It is. And yes, from what I've learned today, there's a difference between venting and using a story as a crutch. When programming is it's only specific to what has been programmed. So, you know, people are making comments on this, and I encourage you to expand this. Again, everything everyone's saying, even what Anastasia said, some people cause horrendous harm. You know, it's like, yes, they do. People do have solutions. This is what I'm hearing from what you're saying. This sort of came away, and I was like, this made me think about it for days. It's like, certain things have happened to me in life, right? This happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. What would I share? You know, I was with my wife for 13 years, and then one day she decided that she didn't want to be with me anymore. That happened. What was the problem with that? Right? Now, I'm triggering myself as I say that. I can notice it. But if we look at the problem with that, the problem was I had a real experience about that. The problem was we had marriage vows. The problem was we had 2 kids. The problem was you work at things. The problem was, like, I could go on, right?
Yep.
But were there any real problems with that? Really?
No.
I think I've come to terms with all of what I experienced, but there actually isn't any problem with my wife one day waking up and saying, I don't want to be with you anymore. There is actually no problem with that. And at the time, it didn't seem that way. So what is that, Nathan? What is that? Tell me. Give me the answers.
That's the conundrum. I mean, look, one of the best things I ever did was try to prove whether there was a problem or not. You know, it actually had me question this, that I have lived my whole life. Like, these things were set in stone. Like, they were actual physical problems that did exist as much as this pen does. And by having to take away my own opinions about things and prove that they exist, I just couldn't. There was just, sure, it was subjective. I could imagine that there was a problem, but I couldn't actually prove to anyone else that it was actually a problem. Like, if you really think about it, like, it doesn't really matter to in the scheme of things. You look at Albert Einstein, his entire, we talk about this guy a lot. He's been a big contribution. And he's got 5 characters, E equals MC squared. That's it. That's the culmination of, that's how you could sum up his entire contribution to humanity. He's a big dude up to big stuff. Now, obviously that's being brief about his contribution, but in the scheme of things, is it really a problem? And it really had me have to question myself as to, well, how many of my problems do I not need anymore? How many problems could I let go of?
Yeah, so basically you came to, from what I could hear and from what our discussion was, and I'd be very interested in what people say about this, but effectively what you determined from all of this was that you have created all of these problems in your imagination.
Yeah.
When what's actually just happened has happened. Like, and I was like, like I just gave you the example. One day I was with my, ex-wife for 13 years. And one day she said, I don't want to do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that happened, right? And it's like, that happened. Mm-hmm. However, the thoughts that I had about the way relationships should be, that are based on the way I was conditioned, that were based on the way that my parents told me I should, my concern for how it looked, whether I was going to get blamed, there's a whole bunch of stuff that just like instantly went through my head. Yep. That was really the problem, was, like you say, my imagination, my interpretation, everything that kind of I brought to that. Yeah. Because really all that happened is, and then if you dig into a deeper level, all that happened was my wife was there saying to me that she kind of liked me enough to hang around me a lot. And then one day said, I actually don't like you enough to hang around you. Bye. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
And what's really interesting about it is that you said, one of the things you said is, you work at it. Like you're a problem solver, but you work at it is also an opinion about what you do to solve a problem.
So again, it's a solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, Anastasia's just made a good point as well. Anastasia said there should be a good ending. I know. I didn't get that either. That's the problem. I wanted it to look a particular way. It should be like, I love you and we love each other and go forth and have a great life. No, that's not what happened. That was a problem. But not really. It just was what it was. And like Lisa Harris has said, there are no problems. There is just what is so, or what's so. Yeah.
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 I think that one of the best, I think I talked about this before, one of the best parts about actually distinguishing this for myself is be able to let go things. It just creates more space in my life. Doesn't mean that I can't create more problems. Just maybe I could let go of the ones that aren't really purposeful or producing any use. Running around being annoyed that something is a particular way very rarely changes it. So it was interesting to
Really?
Well,
does it actually ever? I think all of my I threw a temper tantrum for 6 months. In fact, I think I made it worse. I'm not so sure. made any difference whatsoever.
No, I was just
Made
trying
my
to be
life.
kind. I was just trying to be kind. Just in
Okay.
case there was that specific situation where someone had done that and it had produced a result. I'm yet to find one.
And it was real for me though, like all of that experience, I did think that would solve the problem too. If I throw a tantrum and try to demand that it shouldn't be this way and try to throw the marriage vow card and all of that, maybe that will be the solution, which is interesting. Maybe that's what it is, right? Maybe all of that was to try to have a solution happen, but it was just ineffective.
Yeah.
Like it literally didn't solve anything. It made it worse. So it was almost like it was necessary in a way for me to experience it, to know it doesn't make any difference.
Well, you could argue that your views about that was the problem in the first place.
Okay. Can you say a bit more about that?
Well, if they're not problems, then the view that you had about that situation, you could take that that's the only problem that actually existed because that was the only thing that was there that was really making an impact on you. That your wife was no longer there. Well, it occurs that that's the problem, but is it what you've got to think, what you've got to say about her not being there that is the problem?
Yeah, what I've got to say about it.
I mean, and we're using you as an example, but we've all I've had this.
I know.
I've not gone and, you don't walk around. I've rarely walked away from a breakup and gone, it's all roses. And I actually don't know one where everyone's gone, oh, I love you guys. And we're just going to like separate and, like on the movies.
I've heard of it happening, but it just didn't happen to me. Yeah. And that was, again, it did seem like a big problem. And not only did it seem like a big problem, it was a big problem I felt like I had to tell everyone about. It was like a massive drama story.
Yep.
I needed to tell everyone about how bad it was as a problem.
Yep. You had to share your imagination with everyone.
I did. Every way it shouldn't have been, everything that shouldn't have happened, all of that. Here we go, Lisa. Karina says, exactly, there is no spoon. Lisa said, definition of imagination, the ability of the mind to be creative or resourceful. It was creatively and resourcefully unhelpful. It doesn't say whether it's helpful or not. But yeah, I think I'm using mine as an example because obviously it's easier to use mine as an example. But that was real for me though. So that seemed like a real problem. But what you're saying is, despite how real I experienced it, if you look in mathematics, problems actually don't exist.
No, I couldn't find one. Oh, there is actually one that is a real problem. And that was the thing that was probably the most confronting, which is that a threat to us, like a threat to our life, is an actual problem that does exist. Like you could say that there's a threat to me, and that we do actually have the program. We're built to solve that problem, which is the fight, flight, or freeze response. Like that is an actual problem, like a threat. We
Stay alive.
Yeah. So, for instance, one of the things that when I banged up against this was if the artificial intelligence knew that if it didn't step off the gutter, it would fall over and hurt itself, then it would know that that the problem is a threat to itself.
Okay.
Which is probably not a good idea for an artificial intelligence to have. We do not want an artificial intelligence to be afraid for itself, because the alternative is to defend itself, which is what I talked about earlier.
So that in mathematics, there is one problem, and that is survival.
Well, I could prove that it's a problem. You could say, don't let yourself get hurt. You could program that in, like you could actually program that in. That's that experience of damage.
Okay. Of some threat. How do you program hurt in?
I don't know if we want to do that. I really think that we should stay away from that, like so much.
Well, I get that, but how is it that you can program? Well, of course, I mean, yes, But how is it that you can program that in as a problem, but nothing else?
Well, it's not that you can't program anything else as a problem. It's just that it's something like, for instance, you can program, there's a very small number of scenarios where you could have a situation like it's not that a problem doesn't exist. It's defining a challenge as something. So if you defined like stepping off a step as something that could hurt the artificial intelligence, then you could do that. So you could program those sorts of things in. But the sun beating down isn't a problem. Jess breaking up with her wife isn't a problem. Nathan breaking up from his partner isn't a problem. They're not concrete things. Whereas falling off a step is something that would be a problem. But there's the only one that it's like a perspective based.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it kind of is like Lisa. Lisa's we've got a few comments here. This is interesting. Martha says we all have our own perspective on problems. Tried the same, giving we could see marriage counselor, but reality it was what it was in the end. Yeah. Sonia says sometimes you have to stand up and say no more. Create boundaries. Find your voice. Lisa says reality agreement, my friend. She's getting right into this. Thanks, Lisa. So Lisa says someone has a gun to your head. That could be a problem. Yep. I think even the computer says that's a problem. Mm-hmm. Anastasia, fight or flight. Hello, Jane, if you're still here. And Karina, the threat of death is only a problem because you perceive it's unwanted. The brain is wired towards survival. You can't consider, essentially we'd want a stoic form of AI. Yep. Okay. I can't consider all variables if you don't know. And look, I think this is the interesting thing about it, right? Is when you really look at human beings, and this is why I found it so fascinating. And this is obviously, again, I'm going to reiterate, this is our perspective, our experience, Nathan's research. I'm fascinated by human behavior as well. I've done, 6 years of my own study and research in human behavior and transformation, which is what it actually takes for someone to up their level of performance or become a kind of new kind of human being outside of their current view. And one of the things that I had to confront about that is that my problems were only mine and no one else's. And how I experience life, whilst other people might experience it similarly, it only actually existed over here with me. It didn't actually exist anywhere else.
Yep.
Okay. Anything you want to say about that, Nathan?
I think you're right on the money. That's exactly what it was quite confronting. And then not only that, but you have to, for me, there was that experience so I can let some go. And that was the freedom. The freedom was, holy moly, these aren't concrete. This is completely perspective based. Yeah.
And so why do you think we get so stuck? And so I know I do this myself, but why do you think that sometimes, particularly around certain times of the month, and I won't tell you which times, problems seem a whole lot worse and you kind of feel stuck with them, like you can't get rid of them. Like there's this problem and it's so real, even though I know now because of all the work I've done, it's like, I know it's with me. I know it's not out here. It's fully experienced by me. I'm feeling all of it. I have these real thoughts, real feelings, all of that, real experience, like real. But why is the experience that I'm stuck with it and I can't really shift it?
Oh,
what is that?
I've actually been working on what that looks like because I'm not going to give up on what problems look like. I think it's that you're stuck from your own perspective. There's this experience for people that, you're stuck on your own perspective. You can't let it go. Like one of the ways that I solved this was to actually train myself to get that I make all of this stuff up, like all the problems that I've got and it's a bit of a joke. And a few of my friends have have had the joys of taking Tommy the pink elephant for a walk, and we talked to Tommy and the whole lot. That experience of that if I'm getting stuck on my own problems, I'm literally getting stuck in my own imagination. I'm not managing my own imagination. I'm not getting it's like a joke. It's like a giant joke that we get stuck inside our own imagination. Like an imaginary, just like we were when we were kids. There's nothing wrong with it. It's completely enthralling our imagination. I mean, that everything we look around us, from the helicopters in the sky to planes and buildings, it was all a figment of someone's imagination before it existed. It's phenomenal. I just think that for me, why we get stuck on it, I'm not 100% certain. What I did to not get stuck on it was to get that it was just imaginary. And it's so funny trying to talk to a little pink elephant while you're walking around with your friends. I just think it's absolutely hilarious.
It is. I do find it quite interesting. I think, what have we got? We've got some good questions coming in here. Precisely, Jess. Thank you, Marta. I'm not sure what that was for, but you're welcome. That's where the growth is, says Sonia. And it's a very good point. There are people that only have the problem, what I call the collective. There are people that have collective problems, that's for sure. That's actually the tricky thing, I'd say, because we can go out there and see that other people have similar views. For example, there is kind of this agreement, or you could say, and that's one of the things I love about, being friends with you, is that you and I do have this agreement that we just will not gossip or talk smack about people.
Yeah.
So you and I have that, but that's not always out there. In fact, there's a lot of people are okay to do that, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, in my view, that don't see that as an issue. But I have personally seen the impact it's had on me. And I have personally experienced what it's like for me, having people talk about me like that. So I just don't do it.
Yeah.
Right. But there's agreement out there that these problems exist. So I'm saying talking smack, like everyone understands what I mean. If you don't know what I mean, let me know. But gossiping, saying stuff about people, like seeing that angry, experiencing that stuckness, and using it as an opportunity to vent frustration, there's actually a lot of what I would call other people have experienced it. So it's almost like, yeah, let's get together and we'll talk about that.
Yeah. I don't prescribe to that. I prescribe to...
How come? Like, tell me why you wouldn't. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, why not do that?
Well, for me, I want to be up to stuff. And if I want to be up to stuff and I'm going to use my imagination, as my son says, he wants me to use my power for good. So if I'm going to use my imagination and I'm going to think up something that doesn't exist, and I've got a finite time on this earth, I probably want to use it effectively. I want to come up with something, go and prove whether it's like actually something that's real or not, whether it's possible or not. And if it isn't, okay, right, well, I didn't, that's not going to work. Next thing. There's this intention or purpose. That's why I like Here on Purpose. There's this purpose to me using my imagination. Like that's when I said, managing my own imagination. It's like anything's possible. I mean, it doesn't take long to go on the internet and see things that are, flat Earth's a great example of that. I mean, I've not seen the curvature of the Earth. I've not been to space, but I'm pretty sure it is. We're living on a curved ball, based on the science. I probably want to just, if I came up with that thought, I probably want to check it real fast.
Well, it's interesting. It's actually interesting you say that, because I was actually talking about flat Earth today. And one of the things, firstly, I'm not here to invalidate anyone's views. I have not checked it out myself. I've not done the measurements of the Earth. I have not been able to test it myself, but I have watched the Flat Earth documentary, and I know that in that documentary, they also did their own studies and found that there was curvature on the Earth. And there's a whole bunch of other things, but effectively it's a great example of, you have a thought and you come up with a bit of data to kind of say that thought's real.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go and tell people about it and people agree, and you build a movement. And essentially, like you're saying, whether it's right or wrong or good or bad, I'm not talking about whether it's true or not true or anything like that. But essentially, your imagination has a lot of power.
Right.
It can come from, you can basically put things that weren't there into existence.
Mm-hmm.
It can go, you know what? Everyone thought the earth was flat, then they thought it was round. Now some people think it's flat again, right? That didn't exist until 5 years ago. But that's the power of the imagination. Whether it is true or it's not true, there are, at least from what I can see, up to 1 million people that follow and subscribe to that body of thought now.
Yeah.
So that's the power of the imagination. So what you're saying is, and I love this, your imagination is so powerful. You can spend your life, and this is something that you and I definitely subscribe to, getting caught up in the problems that don't actually empower you, that frustrate you, that anger you, that take you out of life, as I would call it, that have you not show up online. You could focus on that, right? But why not use your ability to create problems, to create a problem worth going after?
Yes.
That's what I can hear you saying.
100%. There's so many actual things that impact people that, whether they're a problem or not, is immaterial, that you could make a difference to. For me, I prescribe to that. One of the things that I liked, I watched the movie about Stephen Hawking, and I'm probably getting it wrong, but it was something along the lines of what I think has nothing to do with the truth. A lot of his research, I think his research was around space and time, and he discovered that it was space-time, one thing, not two things. There's no space and time. It's just space-time, to paraphrase it. And it's quite a complex thing. But most people would actually experience that time and space are two separate things. It takes something to discover and prove something new. In a world where our imagination plays such a massive part in our own experience of the world. Like, we haven't really talked, imagine a conversation about the things that we know to be true, and that's it. It wouldn't be very exciting. We'd be just talking about my awesome t-shirt and your sign and, and my blinds and, that sort of stuff. It's not great. So it's definitely awesome to get out into your imagination and create this, and discover. But there's, for me, I try to draw the line on, well, what am I intentionally out to use it for?
It's great. And I mean, you and I, we did a podcast once, remember? And we even tried to go, what's a fact and what's not?
Yeah.
And in the podcast, we kind of had to confront, after exploring it for a long time, is that there were no real facts. Even science is not necessarily a fact. And what we came up with was, there's just things that happen.
Mm-hmm.
So science what happened was they did an experiment. Mm-hmm. And in that experiment, they found that X amount of people, a large amount that they consider then represents a population, answered a particular way. Yep. And what they call that is this, X, and we then call that a fact. But it's not really a fact. It's that this experiment happened, this happened in the experiment, and then they draw the conclusion. The conclusion is basically some interpretation from everything that happened.
Yes.
And we call this interpretation a fact when it's not. It's just that this happened and this happened and this happened.
Yep.
And that's not to say, I'm being quite conceptual here, but let's use the, I'm just trying to think of a fact, well, if we're going to use the earth, let's just use the earth is round, right?
Yeah.
And the flat earthers, right? The flat earthers. So what happened was we grew up, and they say this in the Flat Earth documentary. Again, I'm not saying I agree with it or I don't agree with it. I'm just saying that the science says that the Earth is round, but up until the 1800s or so, it was flat. It was probably a lot earlier than that, actually. But anyway, what happened was someone came along and said, what if it's not? And then what happened is a bunch of experiments happened, and then a bunch of scientists got together and did a bunch of things and said it was round. And then one day, what happened was another guy said, it's not. And then what he did was do a few calculations. And then what he did was tell people about it, and people agreed, and he built a movement, and now there's a Netflix documentary. That's what happened. There are no facts. And that was the thing that I came back after at the podcast. I was like, there literally are no facts. There is literally no fact on this planet except what happened. And then there's a bunch of what happens put together that we call, and then an interpretation of that we call a fact. Boom. That's what blew my mind.
I think you could, it's one of the reasons why I enjoy the scientific method. If it's repeatable in a scientific way, I mean, that's why it was developed. Scientific method was developed to make sure that we were going down the right path. That's why we invented it.
Yeah, but even the scientific method, right? Mm-hmm. I love that we're getting into this because I love science. I actually use it a lot because I know that it's so reputable that when I'm talking about something, I always draw on the facts and the education system and the scientific research because it's so powerful. But even when you dig in behind that stuff, the scientific method is basically a bunch of people who have done, we did this, 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 and we've interpreted that.
Yes.
On repeat. We did it again, and we did it again, and we did it again, and we've found the same thing. That's still a bunch of this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened.
Oh, sure.
Wow. Sorry, it's Nicole Gibson. I feel so honored. She's come on. She never comments on people's stuff. She's like, lovely to see you, Nicole. And she said, science is nothing on philosophy. Control will never beat what's free. Peace. She's probably left now. Thanks, Nicole.
I think the reason I like scientific method is it brings a little bit more rigor to, I've made a decision, this is a problem. Probably want to test that. Brings more rigor to it. If more
say that again.
This gives it a bit more rigor. Instead of it just being like your problem that your wife left you. You know, if you went and did like a questionnaire and went out to society and was like, so, you know, some random guy at the coffee shop. So, you know, my wife left me. What do you reckon? Do you reckon that's a problem? These are the things that I thought would, you know, you could probably do it. You could probably make it a science experiment. See if you get anyone to agree or disagree, if you can repeatable.
Well, I think I could find loads of people that would, though. That's the thing. That's why I literally lock myself away when I have problems. Do you know why?
I'd like to know.
I don't go talk to people about them, except Lisa. I call Lisa Harris sometimes. And maybe you. I lock myself away because I don't want people to agree with me. I don't want to go out there and have it be more of a problem. My wife left me. I want to talk to people who are not going to make this more of a problem.
Yep.
That's why I call you. Mm-hmm. Or Lisa. You know, I call people I know who won't agree with me. Why would I do that?
Sure. Like if reality by agreement isn't what you prescribe to, what's on the other side of that then?
I say that again.
If you're not a fan of reality by agreement, what's on the other side? There must be something that you're discovering on the other side of reality by agreement. If you've said that that's not what you want, where are you going? Where's the next step to investigate?
Well, Lisa's laughing. Amy says, but Jess, you don't have problems, do you? To me, in my world, I have loads of problems. I have loads of problems that I have under a lot of constraint and a lot of understanding I've not now shared with the world. I'm very, I tend to, I have, like, to your point, I have problems worthy of my life now, as opposed to problems that just happen.
Yep.
To answer your question, what I was able to discover over 6 years of doing transformational programs, of doing a lot of work in this sort of field of human behavior, is if I don't just talk when there's a problem, if I stop, if I allow the problem to kind of, I call it, get into my cells, I kind of like give it 24 hours depending on how I experience it. I let it integrate, however you want to call it. And then I call people I know who won't agree with me, who will see it differently. What I found, and particularly people that have my best interest at heart, like I know you do, I know Lisa does, right? Like, have my higher purpose, as I call it, at heart. What I found is that the problem disappears.
Yeah.
That's why I go about it that way. And then when the problem disappears, I'm free. That's what I've discovered about it personally. And I'm talking about breakup. I'm talking about, I'm not talking about me personally, but things that have happened in my life. I'm talking about things I've experienced in my family and at different times, sexual abuse. I'm talking about, mental illness. I'm talking about things that have happened around me, very close to me, have been horrendous.
Yeah.
Now, the thing happened. I'm not saying it didn't happen. There's certain things that have happened. I mean, just so you know, it gives me the kind of power to say to my neighbor up the road, she was a part of DV and she was getting beaten. And I said to her, it gives me the power to say to her when she tells me about it, if you don't go to the police, I will. And that's happened, but it's not a problem for me. That's why I can talk like that. And so she went, no, don't do that. And then eventually she left her partner. Now they've got a great relationship. She didn't go to the police. They've moved out. They're dealing with it. But had I not kind of viewed problems like this, I don't know that I would have had the power to do that. Still happened. Basically, what I'm getting at is allowing myself to get the problems don't exist gives me a lot of power to impact what's happening.
Yeah, you can make a difference to the situation. It's
Absolutely.
No a fight or flight response. It's actually, just something that's happened that you can make a difference to.
Yeah. So it's not a problem for me that my neighbor is in a domestic violence situation.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. It's just what's happening. So what am I going to do about it? Well, I'm going to tell her because I know that this makes a difference. If you don't tell the police, I will. That got her in action and she dealt with it. Right? No one had said that to her.
No, they talk about the problem, don't they, a lot?
Yeah.
It doesn't make an impact to it.
It doesn't make any difference.
No.
Shaming her because she's not doing a good enough job makes no difference. No. Shaming her partner because her partner shouldn't be doing what she's doing makes no difference. Telling her that I'd call the police if she didn't seemed to make a difference.
Sure, yeah.
And look, I'm joking about this. It wasn't a joke. She thanks me profusely now. She's living alone. Her and her ex are getting along. Her ex is actually dealing with it. Like, I think what I want to leave you guys with is the kind of power that you have to impact things when you're able to give up the problems exist. Anything you want to say about that, Nathan? You're very quiet.
Oh, man, I agree. I mean, I'm glad that we talked about this before. It's an interesting. I'm glad we got to talk about it at all. I think it's half the challenge is like disappearing your problems and getting that they don't add any value, and then you're talking about it, and I'm like, well, this is awesome. I mean, I'm so glad we had this conversation. You know, I'm so glad I went to the trouble of trying to work this out for 8 silly months of my life. You're exactly right that there is no benefit. Like when I did the research, a lot of people solve problems by having that experience of threat. That when you let go of that, and it's just something that's happening and that you can impact it, it just makes a huge difference. Like, you know, when I went and interviewed people about problems, they're like, I go to work so that I can, if I don't go to work, I can't pay the mortgage. I won't have a house. I won't be able to eat. There's this experience of a lot of the time problems are solved through a threat. And the minute you change that to this, is that experience of I need to go, I'm going to work to pay my bills and to buy food, you know, it becomes a solution to something you want. That you know, what so is I need to eat and I want to have a roof over my head. But it really starts to have you take away a lot of the things that you just don't add any value. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate again for anyone that's sort of come in, we're not saying that there's not, you know, these, I just got to see what the time is because I know that, okay, we've been going for an hour. I'm not saying that people don't have a real experience. I mean, I've had real experiences when my, you know, neighbor came and told me that that was going on and that she'd been physically hit. You know, I was like, I was scared. I experienced fear. I was like, that's, you know, that's not great. That all happened for me. I didn't want to say anything. I had thought, I don't want to get involved. It's not my problem, which I'm the antithesis of. I highly recommend getting involved in everyone's problems if you are able to put aside that it's a problem. Like all of that happened, that physical experience was there, the concern, all of that was there. I just had the ability to go and put it aside because what I stand for, to your point, is I have this problem called, I'm solving this problem about what it looks like to shift leadership on the planet. And I'm saying that what it looks like is to stand for things and get involved in things that are happening in front of you. So moment by moment. So I did that, right? I took that action. It wasn't a problem. And I was able to say to myself, she may hate me for it. Okay. I'm willing to accept the impact of that as well. But it wasn't a problem. It was just what was happening in front of me.
Yeah.
I was like, this is, well, yeah, I'm not saying it was right or it was wrong, and it doesn't work. And I don't, you know, personally agree that anyone should be in that situation. It's not a problem though.
No, I agree with you 100%. But that's what I love about this. Like by playing that game, that opinion versus fact, that what's a problem, and playing that game with myself, I'm able to be so much more, I'm able to be a difference. I think every human being wants to make a difference. That having them and defining them as problems is a thing that thwarted me. Was thwarted my experience of being able to deal with things like that it's okay to be confronted and still deal with them like they're not confronting, they're just what's happening, they're just the what so.
Yeah, so would you say that, you know, it's interesting what you're saying, right? They're still confronting. You still get the experience of confront.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you've shifted how you think about the feeling or experience of confront.
Yes.
Is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay.
Sometimes it's confront because I've not done it before, so it's a big deal. Sometimes it's something like there's something that I've got, there's some opinion that I've got about it that makes it confronting. You know, that there is that experience that it is a problem. And for me to distinguish that I've got an opinion about it, you know, it's just an imagination thing that's made it confronting. It's not actually the thing that's going on that's confronting. And the weird part about it is that it's essentially about being more effective and making more of a difference. That the opinion's the thing that stops us making the difference. It's almost like, I like to think that I'm a smart dude. But
You are pretty smart.
But when you start to break things down, you really realize that you're not as smart as you like to think. And should I be wasting my time, this valuable time, thinking through things a lot, or just maybe thinking outside the box on how to actually make an impact here? Like, it's not usual for someone to say, hey, if you don't do anything about it, I'm going to call the police. It's just not how we normally impact something, except you've made a big impact there. Because it didn't take you out of the game.
No, I was terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen. That was another thing, but that wasn't a problem for me.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, it's the view that, as you're putting it, it's the view that it's a problem to feel scared, feel uncertain, have things happen that you didn't expect, have feelings or sensations in your body that are not great. It's kind of like shifting that to, it's not a problem for that to happen. That's actually just a part of being human.
100%. It's actually part of being a human that's up to stuff, like making a big impact. Like, I think.
Yeah, that's true. I feel it more than I ever have right now. That's right.
Yeah, and getting used to that it's okay to be scared about doing big things, and like failing. Like, I'm constantly inside of developing lots of companies. That it wasn't a success isn't a problem. It just wasn't a success. And that's it. Just a what's up. Okay, what can I learn from that? What did I not see that I could see now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually why you and I have such a great relationship too, because like I said, you trigger me, right? There are certain things that you say at different times in the past. I mean, you haven't triggered me in a while. We're not working as closely together though, but but it was never a problem that you and I triggered each other. I would go, again, but it was never a problem. It was like, I'm going to take my time, go away for 24 hours, at some point acknowledge I'm making him wrong, not sure why, figure out what it is and call you and we'd talk about it.
Yeah, well, the sucky thing about that is there's the good old saying is what you don't like in others is because you see it in yourself. And don't worry, Jess, I had the same experience. There's that experience. So I actually got coaching and people were like, Jess is going to trigger you, and I'm like, yeah, she's like the perfect person to get triggered by, because there's no problem. It's just, I can share with, oh, look at this, I discovered this about myself, or, we can clean it up real fast. I think it's letting go of that there's an opinion there and it gets in our way. Some experience from the past, some opinion about the experience of the past. Maybe someone else's opinion about the experience of their past that's in the way.
Well, it is. It's like you actually have me confront parts about myself that I don't like. And that I, in some way, I don't like domination or being dominating. And you say I dominate, right? And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm just powerful, as opposed to going, maybe I do. Maybe sometimes I do take over and dominate, and just acknowledging that there's this kind of dislike for domination and like for power. Like, I like being a powerful or empowered woman. And if it's interpreted as dominating, I don't like that. I don't want to be seen like that. And I certainly don't want some guy in front of me telling me that that's what's going on.
You're going to love the new stuff that I've been working on, Jess. You're going to love it. You'll have to come over. I'll get the whiteboard out and I'll talk to you all about it. I showed Lisa Harris about it to check. I've showed it with a few, but you're just going to love the new work that I've been doing.
I bet, and look, you had me confront something, you have actually taken yourself from zero to multimillionaire, right? Yeah. I haven't done that. And I've just left corporate, and I've just, when I say just, it's been 8 months. So I've been out of corporate for 8 months. I've started my own business. I'm getting started. And, I've got a 10-year plan, but you're someone I could learn a lot from.
Sure.
But I'm so arrogant. And I think I know it all that I don't, right? And you hold that mirror up to me. You're like, you could learn a lot from me, And I'm like, should I learn from you, Nathan?
Have you considered that why I say that is that I can learn a lot from you too?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We can learn a lot from each other. And I think that's what I wanted to point out. That's why if I thought it was a problem that you triggered me, we wouldn't be friends. If you thought it was a problem, we wouldn't be friends. We trigger each other, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So it's provides us an opportunity to call it out.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that even though we trigger each other, the experience of discovery is so much more fun than running around like there's a bunch of problems in the world. Like it's so like it's you look at kids and they're just discovering everything. They're so excited, and to be able to let go of that stuff and to just have that experience of discovery. Like I got super triggered by you, and I discovered this about myself, and I've got this to say. And you're like, how awesome is that? It's like actually being connected with someone else without making them right or wrong, like this world of discovery and fun.
Yeah. I think I want to mention that because you said this to me yesterday, I thought it was so funny. You said to me that you consider me a control group.
Yeah, I sure do.
I think this is hilarious. Nathan does all this research. He looks about what's happening online. You explain it the way that you did because I thought it was great.
Yeah. So whenever I'm trying to, like, he's always got the control group, the group of people that you've got to check what you think against, so that there's like, I don't interact with you a lot. I'm not talking about with this research with you. So what I want to do is, and you're so raw and you're so open and you're as authentic as like you're quite authentic, you're up to stuff. So I can check my research, not just with like, the mathematical stuff and the fancy stuff on the board, but when I talk with other people, I use you as an example. And the reason I can use you as an example is I know you're not going to make me wrong for it. Like you get that I'm using you as an example, whether it worked or didn't work, or whatever it was, whether it was agreed or disagreed with it, you never, because I'm intentionally using my power to create some kind of positive.
Yeah.
You're completely fine with it.
Yeah, you check it against me. You're like, on the scale of full of shit to Jess.
Yep.
How bad was it? Yeah, and I think we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to have this relationship if we just got triggered and walk away.
No.
And look, I'm not saying that people that trigger you and just remain not so great, and like, I'm not an advocate of staying in places that don't work. Like, don't stay in relationships or friendships that don't work. I think the thing that works though for you and I is that we both have a complete appreciation for each other, and we both have a purpose around leadership. You're about impacting leaders and you're about making a difference, and I'm about leadership. So we can go away and go, why do we trigger each other when both of us are really out to make a difference and have such a incredible purpose around leadership?
Yeah.
Well, we can just learn from each other. We're just different.
Yeah.
Whereas, there are times that I'm like, all right, well, that person's just like that, it's not going to work for me to be their friends with that person. They're interesting, but, not really up to anything. And I'm not going to say that to invalidate anyone either. You don't have to be, but it's like, what I'm saying is you don't have to want to be friends with people. You just don't. It's actually okay. It's not a problem. No.
And I think that sometimes, one of my oldest friends, I wouldn't see him, from 1 week to the next. And I run, I run the WITYAR, which is what's important to you in your life. We catch up when it's time to go fishing and go to the beach and do all those sorts of things, because that's important to him. That's important to me. He doesn't have an opinion about what I do outside of that. I can call him, I can interact with him, and we've had a friendship like that our whole lives. And that's awesome. I don't have to not be friends with him. I can be friends with him and hang out with him and do things when it fits us. I don't have an opinion about it, anything else.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. And we're going to have to wrap up too,
Yeah.
because I have a schedule with my housemate and she's got a life. So she's about to go live. But I'll just read some of these yeah, some of these beautiful comments here. We got Sonia that says mirrors, fire says oh no, that's Wahi, what a wonderful friendship. I hope I've said your name right. Gavin, Anastasia, Sonia, she's hitting you up for free coaching, Nathan. It's true. Anastasia says, Jess, it's not good to think that you know it all. I know. It's not good. Doesn't mean I stop thinking it. I constantly think I know it all. I just know how to catch it now. Jess, you may be dominating, but I've discovered all week I've been an asshole all my life. Go you, Lisa. I love people that can acknowledge that. So I love you. It's a compliments battle. Yes, beautiful growth and learning. And Nona says, I wonder, would all of this amazing stuff work in the working for someone else's world? Work in the working for someone else's world. Yeah. And Anastasia waving. So any final comments you'd like to say? Thank you all so much for tuning in and contributing to this conversation. You know, if you could say one last thing, what would you say, Nathan?
Consider that there's no problems, that they're just completely imaginary, and what ones serve you and what ones don't. And even if it probably doesn't, I've not discovered a situation where having a problem or just or thinking it's a problem has actually made any difference. It's made an immense difference in my life. Just spending 8 months researching this. And don't take my word for it. Try and go and find yourself a problem. I mean, my daughter was in the car the other week and she was just going at it. You know, this is a problem and this is a problem and this is a problem and this is a problem. And I was like, and I said, oh, you know that you're so good at this that you can see so many. Do you think you could just point one out? Like we're driving from school to home, and she just sat back in the seat like, you old people, you got no idea. You know, you have no idea. I've got this down pat. I'm looking at the rearview mirror. I'm going, I know exactly what's going through your head. Like we're problem experts. We can see these things. And then all of a sudden she's got that look like, hell, I can't see a problem. And then she goes, I can't see one. And I'm like, well, what can you see then? And all of a sudden, and they just get it so much faster than us. She goes, it's just all creations out there. Like they're just things that people have created. And all of a sudden she had this giant grin on her face that these things that were, you know, for a kid, they're big challenges. You know, kids are being mean at school and this and that. Just to see the world from the perspective of wonderment instead of seeing it from the perspective of problems. Just completely shifted her demeanor. All those problems just disappeared because she realized that she had power over whether they existed or not.
Yeah, wow. That's beautiful. Living in a world of wonderment. Yeah. Living from wonderment as opposed to problems. Beautiful. Well, I want to acknowledge you, Nathan, for always, I'm going to just share this with everyone before we do crack off, for always, anyone that does come in contact with Nathan, maybe you will get triggered, maybe you won't, but you never ever, maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you never ever stop standing for the kind of freedom that you know is possible for people. And that sometimes doesn't go well, sometimes it does go well, but you're always just willing to have that conversation no matter what happens. And I really do love that about you. And it's not always easy. But thank you for being the kind of human being that does that. And having this conversation with me and spending 8 months identifying if problems exist. I mean, who spends 8 months trying to work that out mathematically? You do. So yeah.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Wahi, I'm so sorry if I say that. Fire. Is that fire? It's fire, I think. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, Karina. I'm so sorry if I screwed up your name. Thanks, Danelle. Thanks, Lisa, Sonia, Diddy, everyone else that tuned in. Thank you all for tuning in. And leave your comments, anything you want to say, any feedback, that's great. And have a lovely evening. Thanks again, Nathan.
Bye.
See ya. We're off Facebook now, so I can just talk to you.
Awesome.
And
You're
you
good?
can do your thing. But yeah, I'm just going to say goodbye to you.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Thank you so much.
I want to say something to you, and I don't know if I didn't get to say it to you. I said it to you on the phone the other day. Like, the amount of people that are listening to you now, like, you've really actually achieved what you set out to achieve. Like, there's a lot of people that are really interested in investigating what it looks like to be free. They're not quite, that they're even investigating it is such a huge achievement. It's freedom.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
There is.
And you've done so well at getting out there and, connecting so many different people and having them fulfill on what's important to them.
Yeah.
You look at Dom, those people are just, they're literally fulfilling on what's important to them. And you are the facilitator for that.
I thank you. I got it.
Yeah.
I was so terrified at getting started, and I don't always get it right, but it's like people are interested in this conversation now.
Yes. Oh yeah. And I think that they need to have that conversation in the safety of their own lounge room before they start to get out there and talk about it in public. There's a lot of fear. And this is a big conversation to have. Brooksy came out the other day and he saw what I'd written on the whiteboard for my son. And he's like, if people took a photo of that, it'd just look out of control. It's just so weird to have a conversation like that.
Right.
The silly thing is that we don't have conversations. There's no freedom in our conversations. So yeah, you've made a huge difference and you've achieved what you set out to, and that's awesome.
I am actually shifting leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. And to me, it's just fun. I just have so much fun doing it.
You're entertaining. You do realize you're like an entertainer, don't you?
That's what I set out to do. I was like, no one's going to listen to me if I'm fucking boring. Have you heard of those people online? They're fucking boring. I'm going to teach myself to somehow bring light to this, to laugh at myself, to allow myself to take all of the fun and pun and all of it and it seems to work a treat.
Oh, way better than telling people how to live their lives and being serious.
Exactly. Oh, you guys need to just, no, you don't, and you actually fucking don't need to do anything.
Oh yeah, you wait till you see my new stuff on the board. Fuck, that was shit. It was so confronting when I did it. Lisa, I checked it with Lisa to make sure that I'd done the right thing, that I was going down the right path. It was awesome. I was like Rain Man against the board, like a big weirdo. That's a whole. She said she got empty and meaningless out of it. It's a really interesting thing, and it's not about sharing or having you agree. It's just more like I think it just brings a whole new depth to how to lead.
Oh yeah, okay, I'll get off.
Yeah.
Let me give you a call. She's got to take.
No worries. I got to make a call anyway at 7.
But yes, I want to see, and you and me and Brooksy need to get online and say authentic professionals isn't happening anymore. We just realised we haven't done that. No, we need to do that.
We tried every other which way. Anyway, we better let her on.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Big love, Nathan.
Bye.
Bye.